morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. My name is Bryan Walker. I'm a resident of Boise, Idaho. I'm an attorney. I have my own business in connection with that, and I'm a member of Occupy Boise. I come before you to urge you to kill this legislation, which we believe to be unconstitutional. Not out of concern for Occupy Boise, but out of concern for the integrity of our representative democracy. Our legislature ought not be passing laws that clearly violate the constitutional rights of the citizens it serves. As for Occupy Boise, that which does not kill us makes us stronger. We have grown much stronger since the legislation was introduced, and nothing in this bill comes close to killing us. The aspersions, innuendo, and hyperbole that have been cast at Occupy Boise do not remotely resemble the reality of what our burgeoning community and family of concerned citizens have been able to achieve. This point is shared and made eloquently by Boise Chief of Police Mike Masterson and the Director of the Idaho State Police, Jerry Russell. I met with Chief Masterson yesterday, and he delivered to me an open letter to Occupy Boise. I would like to submit a copy of that letter as an exhibit to the committee. Mr. Chairman?
Yeah, the page will come and get that, and it'll be made part of our minutes.
Chief Masterson and Director Russell have expressed to us this assessment of our activities. Over the last 3 months, representatives from the Boise Police Department and Idaho State Police have met with the representatives in the spirit of cooperation to support your First Amendment rights and provide safety and security for all. We have appreciated the efforts of the majority of those involved in your movement toward peaceful, safe, and respectful demonstrations. Occupy Boise members have conducted themselves in a civically responsible, law-abiding, and peaceful manner. We have found our ongoing dialogue to be helpful, constructive, and respectful. We really appreciate the civility shown by nearly all those associated with your movement here in Boise. Thank you. We look forward to working cooperatively with Occupy Boise in the future. Please say thank you to the members of your movement for their past positive actions and reiterating our desire to maintain a spirit of cooperation and respect in our future dealings. May our continued peaceful, safe, organized, and respectful collaboration demonstrate to the nation the quality of life we all appreciate in the state of Idaho and in making Boise the most livable city in the country.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. You're about out of time. You want to summarize briefly?
I will. I'm nearly finished, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. The Boise Police Department also shares our concerns as to the constitutionality of this erstwhile statute. The Boise Police Department has notified the Idaho State Police that they will not participate in the confiscation of any property on the site. Chief Masterson yesterday suggested that I ask each of the members of this committee to contact your own local law enforcement agencies and ask them about their policies and procedures for the storing and disposition of seized or abandoned property. I stand for questions.
Any questions from the committee?
Chairman, thanks. Bryan, thank you. You're driving at the heart of the bill that I'm wrestling with, and I realize that lawyers might look at it different, and individuals who are not lawyers look at the First Amendment differently. But as I read the U.S. Supreme Court decisions on this, especially for the 1980s, I think, looking at that language, that the statement, the legislative intent in Section 1 would be extremely important to a court in guiding them. And since you are an attorney and have emphasized that you're an attorney, I think that that language, based on what the Supreme Court has said, gives to the legislature the authority to do what it wants to do in Section 2. But in Section 2, it also talks about the litter component. And my concern deals with Fourth and Fifth Amendment provisions, more than the right to regulate it. In my mind, here's my list of questions that I've been thinking of in my mind the last few days. First, does it constitute speech, the actions over there? Yeah, I think it does. Is this speech subject to regulation? Well, as I read the U.S. Supreme Court decisions, the conclusion I come to is, yeah, it does. Then what are the legal standards to regulate this type of speech? Well, and that's when it took me back to the legislative intent language. And so then I asked myself, are there other minimum legal, less restrictive standards that Idaho could impose? And if so, what are they? And I couldn't find a comfortable answer for it, other than what I'm seeing in House Bill 404. But where I'm high-centered is on the seizure litter standard and the Fourth and Fifth Amendment. And I'm looking forward to Mr. Gilmore advising us on that, because I've read their powerful Attorney General's opinion and the like. But I'd like your help as a lawyer to help me wrestle with that part of the bill. Would you please?
Mr. Chairman, Senator Davis, with all due respect to Mr. Kane and Mr. Gilmore, it's quite clear. The Fifth Amendment, and as applied to the states through the 14th Amendment to the United States Constitution, protects not only liberty, but also property rights. And the state, furthermore, the Supremacy Clause of the United States Constitution indicates that where the federal government has legislated in certain areas, that the state is not at liberty to enact legislation that is contrary or provides fewer rights than that federal legislation. The Civil Rights Act of 1964 is very specific. 42 U.S.C. Section 1983 protects those same property rights and liberty rights as are set forth in the 5th and 14th Amendments of the United States Constitution. Frankly, this legislation, when I look at it, runs afoul of the federal legislation, not to mention the United States Constitution. Moreover, I simply see no process by which an individual whose property is seized on that site has recourse. There will be, under the face of the legislation, there is no notice to anyone, and there is no hearing for anyone to appear and object to the confiscation of their property. And I can assure you that this property out here is not litter. I hope that answers your question, Senator Davis.
Thank you. Any other questions from the committee? Great, thank you for your testimony. The next is Katie Fight, and then after that would be Jean Bray. So you can get ready.